What's up guys, Miles with 9to5Mac, and if you're a fan of good ideas and intros like that, consider subscribing to the channel for future content like this. The 11-inch iPad Pro was a really interesting device in a lot of ways. It's now got an M1 processor, Thunderbolt connectivity, and no mini LED display on this model at least. Not to mention it's running iPadOS 14, which has its limits for sure. So today we're going to be finding out if the cheapest M1 iPad Pro you can get is worth the money. But first, a word from our sponsor. Thanks to Vectornator for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube. Vectornator is an all-in-one illustration, UI design, and publications app that's available for iPhone, iPad, and Mac. And Linearity has released the next major update to Vectornator in version 4.0, which comes with a bunch of new changes and features. One of them being the new Quick Actions feature, which allows you to easily access core actions like changing opacity, stack order, boolean operations, and much more. You've got support for blend modes, you can do AR previews for photos or illustrations, you've got built-in joystick controls for precise values, and a bunch of typography tools. Vectornator also gives you access to ACKNOWLEDGEMENTS, which is their library of over 80,000 different icons. And thanks to a unified codebase, you're getting all the updates on all platforms, iPhone, iPad, and Mac. Click the link in the description to download Vectornator today. The unboxing experience is pretty much identical to last year's iPad Pro. You've got the tablet itself, a USB-C charging cable, a 20-watt Apple charger, and of course, your Apple stickers. And just to go over my spec, this is the silver 128GB model, and I did not opt for 5G because 5G is, well, you know, 5G. Since everyone is naturally gravitating towards the larger 12.9-inch model for its mini LED display, let's talk about the 11-inch model's display first. And my perspective on this is a little interesting because while I have not yet seen the 12.9-inch model in the flesh, I do use a mini LED monitor every day in addition to producing HDR content every week, so I'm pretty much used to high brightness displays and HDR content in some form. This display may not be as bright or as contrasty as the larger 12.9-inch model, but it's still so good. On this model, you're getting 600 nits of peak brightness, and it's not going to blow you away with how bright it is, but generally speaking, it's more than sufficient for indoor use. From what I can tell, this display is identical to last year's 11-inch Pro, so you're still getting the same excellent color reproduction and range that you get with the 2020 11-inch iPad Pro. And of course, you're still getting that butter smooth 120Hz display. The Pros had this feature for years now, but it's still so good, and compared to the Air, Mini, and standard iPad, 120Hz really does enhance the overall experience. The smoothness just makes you always want to find a reason to pick it up and start using it. Overall, this display is great for what they're charging for this tablet, and if you're still not convinced that you don't exactly need the 12.9-inch model's display, I can give you a few reasons why. Firstly, the pixel per inch count is the same, so the 12.9-inch model won't look any sharper or detailed generally speaking. Secondly, if you're not in a bright room constantly, you won't really be utilizing the 1000 peak nits of brightness that the 12.9-inch model has. And lastly, if you're not constantly watching HDR content, which hopefully you are, because, you know, that's what we shoot in, then you're not going to be taking advantage of that 1600 peak nits of brightness all the time. But like I said, this tablet's still got a great display, and you shouldn't let all the fancy tech specs get in the way of you making an accurate purchase decision, because honestly, the majority of people won't be really taking full advantage of the XDR technology. The star of the show here is the Apple M1 processor in this tablet, and last year's model was already wicked fast. Now it's just too fast. When taking a look at Geekbench and other benchmarking applications, you can tell that the M1 iPad is notably faster than last year's model, but with the iPad Pro, we're kind of past the point of just comparing numbers, so I did some tests to see how much better it is for productivity and hardcore work. I did some video editing in LumaFusion, and I only used footage from my camera, the one I'm shooting on right now, which is 8K and 4K HEVC footage, and I was quite surprised to see that I can play back footage with literally no stutter or lag, and this is definitely something I did not experience with the 2018 or even 2020 iPad Pro. It couldn't quite handle footage from my camera 100%, but now it's smooth sailing. I was able to export a 5-minute 4K HDR project consisting of 8K and 4K video files in less than 3 minutes, which is extremely impressive. And I'm not sure if you can really ask for a tablet faster than this at this point. The only thing left for Apple to do now as far as video editing software is release a proper version of Final Cut Pro for the iPad. Please and thank you. I also tested out photo editing on the iPad Pro in Lightroom, and I honestly couldn't tell a difference in performance. There may be a slight speed improvement as far as rendering changes, but other than that, M1 isn't really going to provide a substantially better experience for photo editing than last year's or even 2018 iPad Pro. So if photo work on the iPad is your thing, I wouldn't buy this for any improvements in that area. And by my estimation, gaming on the new iPad Pro is pretty much just as good as it is on the 2021 iPad Pro. I highly doubt a lot of people are buying this tablet primarily for gaming, but there really isn't a noticeable improvement here. But that's not a bad thing because last year's model was already great. Everything loads up and plays stutter-free, and when you're playing a game that takes advantage of the high frame rate display, it's a pretty great experience. As far as how M1 affects the battery life, well, I'm not really sure if I could tell a difference between last year's model and this, but on the 2020 Pro, I was pretty much getting a solid 8 hours of screen on time with pretty decent usage, and you can expect something very similar here unless you're really pushing it all day every day. M1 is just further optimizing the already great battery optimization we had on the models prior. Some people are looking at the 2021 iPad Pros as if they're completely new animals because of this new CPU, but you gotta remember all of the previous models were already running their highest end custom silicon, so this processor being inside of the iPad isn't really anything new. It's just more and a better version of the same thing. But overall, performance is great and M1 is killer on this machine. Thunderbolt 3, or USB 4 as it's called, is now included in the iPad Pro. We've already had Type-C in the iPad Pro for years now, but we've nearly got double the read and write speeds for transferring data and files. At least we should. Unfortunately, there's no app for iPadOS we can use to see exactly what speeds we're getting through Thunderbolt, but based on what I've done, it seems to be up to par with the other M1 devices. When editing videos in LumaFusion, I copied videos from an external Thunderbolt drive, and the video clips were 3 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes, even 15 gigabytes a piece, and it copied over into the tablet within a minute, which is pretty impressive. And when importing photos into Lightroom, all of those raw files copied over in pretty much an instant, which is also really helpful for productivity. In general, Thunderbolt on the iPad Pro isn't going to be a game changer for the average user, but when you're offloading massive amounts of data, you will 100% see the difference and you'll appreciate it. And I've heard the argument that there should be a second Thunderbolt port on the iPad Pro, but with the inclusion of Thunderbolt, I think a secondary port on the iPad is even less necessary than it would be if it still had USB 3.0. And that's because of the limitations of iPadOS. There really isn't much you could do with the second port on the iPad compared to just connecting the Pro to a Thunderbolt dock. When Apple announced the new Pros, they mentioned that with Thunderbolt, the tablet will have the ability to drive the Pro Display XDR at full 6K resolution. So I thought, oh, so now the iPad will be able to drive all displays at full resolution. That's great. But no, that's not the case. There are certain apps like LumaFusion or Disney Plus that'll unlock that full screen functionality for certain uses, but outside of that, you're stuck with a 4:3 monitor for everything else, even YouTube. The iPad Pro isn't a 16:9 display, so I understand that addressing this isn't as easy as clicking a button, but for Apple, I don't think it's too much to ask for this to be resolved, especially when it works with their own 16:9 monitor. Apple, it's time. This is supposed to be a device for productivity, and not being able to utilize 100% of the screen you're working on definitely gets in the way of that. Also, it just looks so weird. Does anyone else get bothered when they take an iPad Pro or any iPad and plug it into a display and just notice these huge black bars on the side? Doesn't that bother you? A really cool and exclusive feature on the iPad Pro called Center Stage allows you to take advantage of the wide-angle selfie camera in an interesting way. It'll use digital zoom to track your face around the frame when making FaceTime calls, and before trying it out for myself, I didn't really expect it to impress me that much, but I really like the way it works. It's not meant to track people moving at highway speeds, just smoothly follow you around the room if you're walking around the room or calling with multiple people. And I think applications like Zoom could really benefit from being able to take advantage of this API. And I notice sometimes the camera can get a bit confused when multiple people are moving around in different directions, but outside of that, it's a really cool feature, and when you go into the camera app and zoom out, you can see the totality of all that room you've got, and it's a wide boy for sure. And one way Apple could take this further is just by allowing this feature within the stock camera app for video recording. I think it'd make for very dynamic videos. Outside of the increased 16 gigabytes of RAM and 2 terabyte storage option and 5G, there isn't much else that's really new with this iPad, but that's not a bad thing because the iPad Pro is the physical representation of bleeding edge tablet technology, especially with the 12.9-inch model. With the M1 processor, you've got more power than you could ever want in a device this small, and Thunderbolt takes things even further with its throughput capability. But the glaring problem here is obviously iPadOS. There are great pro applications that work very well with the iPad, but it still just isn't enough to replace a laptop, not yet. WWDC is right around the corner, and so we're hoping to see something that changes the narrative here as far as software, but for now, there isn't a real reason to consider this tablet over, let's say, an M1 MacBook, unless you just want the tablet experience in the tablet form factor. I thought I'd end this video with giving you another M1 to cars analogy. The M1 iPad Pro is like an 1,000 horsepower supercar running on $200 tires. It's technically super fast, but anytime you try to hammer it, you're sliding all over the place. You've got all this power that you essentially can't do anything with. So hopefully, iPadOS 15 is the sticky pair of Trofeo-Rs that we've been wanting for the iPad Pro ever since it came out. Because it's a great device, all the hardware is there, we just need the software to match. If you're interested in a more general review of the iPad Pro or want to get a good sense of all the features, click the pop-out banner to check out our 2020 iPad Pro review. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for future content like this. We'll be doing some comparisons between this device and some other products in the Apple lineup. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks to Vectornator for sponsoring 9 to 5 Mac on YouTube. Vectornator is an all-in-one illustration, UI design, and publications app that's available for iPhone, iPad, and Mac. And Linearity has released the next major update to Vectornator in version 4.0, which comes with a bunch of new changes and features. One of them being the new Quick Actions feature, which allows you to easily access core actions like changing opacity, stack order, boolean operations, and much more. Vectornator also gives you access to ACKNOWLEDGEMENTS, which is their library of over 80,000 different icons. And thanks to a unified codebase, you're getting all the updates on all platforms, iPhone, iPad, and Mac. Click the link in the description to download Vectornator today.